I should have known something was wrong when Liora started wearing lipstick to family dinners. My wife of 8 years had never been one for makeup around her parents, but there she sat across from me at the Selrick family dining table, her lips painted crimson like she was heading to a nightclub instead of eating her mother's overcooked pot roast. "Troy, you're awfully quiet tonight," Mrs. Selrick observed, her sharp eyes studying me over her wine glass. "Is everything all right at the insurance office?" "Just fine, thanks," I replied, cutting into the tough meat. "Busy season, you know how it is." Liora laughed, a sound that used to make my heart skip but now felt like fingernails on a chalkboard. "Troy's always busy with his little policies and claims, such important work." The sarcasm dripped from her voice like honey from a broken jar. Her sister Kiera shot Liora a warning look from across the table. At 32, Kiera had always been the more grounded of the two sisters, running her wedding planning business with actual professionalism, while Liora treated her interior styling career like an extended hobby funded by my income. "Actually, commercial insurance is quite complex," Kiera said, offering me a genuine smile. "Troy's clients depend on him to protect their entire businesses." "Oh, Kiera, always defending everyone," Liora said, rolling her eyes. "Speaking of protection, did I ever tell you about Joel's new security system? He had it installed last month. Top of the line, motion sensors, cameras, the works." The table fell silent. Joel Bannon was Leora's ex-boyfriend from college, the real estate developer she'd dated for 3 years before we met. I'd heard his name maybe 5 times in 8 years of marriage, and now suddenly he was a regular topic of conversation. "Why would you know about Joel's security system?" I asked, keeping my voice level. Liora shrugged, taking a sip of wine. "We've been catching up lately. Old friends, you know. He's doing very well for himself. Just bought that new development on Maple Street." Mr. Selrick cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Perhaps we should discuss something else." "No, it's fine," Liora said, her eyes meeting mine with a challenge I'd never seen before. "Joel and I have been talking quite a bit recently. He's been asking about me, about my life, about whether I'm happy." My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. "And what do you tell him?" "The truth," she said simply. "That I'm not sure anymore." The silence stretched like a taut wire ready to snap. Mrs. Selrick fidgeted with her napkin. Mr. Selrick studied his plate intensely. Kiera's face had gone pale. "Liora," Kiera said quietly, "maybe this isn't the time or place." "When is the time, Kiera? When I'm 40, 50? When I've wasted my entire life settling for safe and boring?" Leora's voice rose slightly. "Joel texted me yesterday. He's planning a trip to Italy next month. Rome, Florence, the Amalfi Coast. He asked if I wanted to come." I set down my fork carefully. "And?" Liora looked directly at me, her expression calm as a lake before a storm. "I told him I'd think about it, because honestly, Troy, if my ex calls, I'm going back." The words hit me like a physical blow. Not because they were unexpected, I'd felt her pulling away for months, but because of how casually she delivered them, like she was commenting on the weather or asking someone to pass the salt. I stood up slowly, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "Well, that's certainly clear." "Troy, wait," Mr. Selrick started, but I was already moving. "Thank you for dinner, Mrs. Selrick," I said, grabbing my jacket from the back of my chair. It was illuminating. I walked toward the front door, hearing Leora's voice behind me. "That's it? You're just going to leave? No fight, no argument, no begging me to stay?" I paused at the door but didn't turn around. "What would be the point? You've made your choice." The cool October air hit my face as I stepped outside, my hands shaking slightly as I reached for my car keys. 8 years of marriage, and it ended with a casual declaration over pot roast and red wine. "Troy, wait." I turned to see Kiera running down the front steps, her heels clicking against the concrete. She'd grabbed a sweater but was still shivering in the autumn chill. "Don't go like this," she said, breathing hard. Leora's just being dramatic. She doesn't mean it. Yes, she does, I replied, unlocking my car door. And honestly, Kiera, I'm relieved. I've been waiting for her to have the courage to say it out loud. Kiera stepped closer, close enough that I could smell her perfume. Something light and floral, nothing like the heavy, expensive fragrance Liora wore. She doesn't deserve you, Troy. She never did. I looked at her then, really looked at her. Kiera had always been beautiful, but in a subtle way that grew on you. Where Liora was all sharp angles and dramatic gestures, Kiera was soft curves and genuine smiles. Where Liora demanded attention, Kiera earned it. Forget her, Kiera said, her voice barely above a whisper. Pick me. I smiled for the first time all evening. I already did. 3 weeks later, I sat in my new downtown apartment, a sleek one-bedroom with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago River. The divorce papers lay spread across my glass dining table like battle plans, which, in a way, they were. My phone buzzed with another text from Liora, the 15th one today. We need to talk. This is ridiculous. You can't just throw away 8 years over one stupid comment. I deleted it without responding, just like I had the previous 14. My lawyer, Patricia Chen, had been clear. No contact except through legal channels. It was better for both of us, and it certainly made my life simpler. The apartment was a far cry from the suburban house Liora and I had shared. That house, with its carefully curated interior design and color-coordinated everything, had never felt like home anyway. It felt like a showroom, a place where I was afraid to put my feet up or leave a coffee mug on the wrong surface. Here I could breathe. Here I could think. My phone rang, and Kiera's name appeared on the screen. We'd been talking daily since that night at her parents' house, carefully navigating the complicated situation we'd found ourselves in. How are you holding up? She asked without preamble. Better than expected, I said, settling into my leather recliner, a purchase Liora would have vetoed in our old life. The bank transfers went through this morning. Our accounts are officially separated. And the business referrals? I smiled grimly. As of yesterday, I've redirected all my client recommendations away from Selrick Interiors. Turns out, when you're the one who's been feeding someone's business for years, you have a lot of power when you decide to stop. Kiera was quiet for a moment. You know she's going to fight this, right? She's already calling everyone we know, trying to get them on her side. Let her, I said. I'm not interested in a popularity contest. I just want out. She's been asking about you, where you're living, what you're doing, whether you're seeing anyone. What do you tell her? Nothing. I told her if she wanted information about you, she could ask you herself. I appreciated Kiera's loyalty, especially knowing how difficult it must be for her to navigate between her sister and me. How are things at home? Tense. Mom keeps asking what really happened, and Dad just hides in his workshop. Leora's been staying in her old room, crying dramatically and talking about how you abandoned her. Abandoned her? I laughed bitterly. She's the one who announced she was leaving me for her ex-boyfriend. I know, but you know Liora. She's never been good at taking responsibility for her actions. That was an understatement. In 8 years of marriage, I could count on one hand the number of times Liora had genuinely apologized for anything. It was always someone else's fault, some external circumstance, some misunderstanding. There's something else, Kiera said, her voice hesitant. Joel came by yesterday. I sat up straighter. To your parents' house? To see Liora. He picked her up in his new BMW, took her to lunch at that expensive place downtown. The one with the Michelin star. Good for them, I said, surprised by how little the news bothered me. A month ago, the thought of Liora with another man would have destroyed me. Now it felt like watching a movie about strangers. Troy, I need to tell you something. What? Kiera took a deep breath. I've been thinking about what I said that night, about picking me. I meant it, but I don't want you to feel pressured or like you have to choose me just because Liora hurt you. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights reflecting on the water. Is that what you think this is? A rebound? I don't know what to think. This is all so complicated. It's not complicated, I said. It's actually the simplest thing in the world. I spent 8 years married to the wrong sister. The words hung in the air between us, heavy with implication. Troy, I mean it, Kiera. I look back at all those family gatherings, all those dinners and holidays, and you know what I remember? I remember talking to you. I remember you actually listening when I spoke, asking follow-up questions, caring about the answers. I remember you defending my work, my interests, my opinions when Liora dismissed them. You were married to my sister. I was. And I was faithful and committed and everything a husband should be, but that doesn't mean I didn't notice that you were everything a wife should be. Kiera was quiet for a long moment. What happens now? Now we take things slow. We let the divorce finalize. We see what develops between us without the shadow of my marriage hanging over everything. And Liora? I thought about my wife, my soon-to-be ex-wife, and felt nothing but a mild sense of relief. Liora gets exactly what she asked for, her freedom, her ex-boyfriend, and her trip to Italy. I hope she's very happy. But even as I said the words, I knew this wasn't going to be that simple. Liora had never been one to let go gracefully, and I had a feeling the real battle was just beginning. The first shot was fired 2 days later at Millennium Park. I was grabbing coffee from my usual vendor when I heard a familiar voice behind me. Well, if it isn't the famous Troy Renwick. I turned to see Joel Bannon approaching, his $1,000 suit immaculate, his smile predatory. He'd always been handsome in an obvious way, tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of confident swagger that impressed people who didn't look too closely. Joel, I said neutrally, accepting my coffee from the vendor. How's the real estate business? Booming, thanks for asking. Just closed on a $12 million commercial property yesterday. He stepped closer, invading my personal space in a way that was clearly intentional. I heard about you and Liora. Sorry it didn't work out, man. Are you? Joel's smile widened. Well, no, not really. I always knew she'd come back eventually. We have history, you know? Real connection, not just convenience and shared bills. I took a sip of my coffee, studying him over the rim. Is that what she told you? That our marriage was about convenience? Among other things. Joel's eyes gleamed with malicious pleasure. She's been very communicative about your relationship. The lack of passion, the boring routine, the way you never really satisfied her needs. The words were designed to wound, and a year ago they might have. But standing there in the morning sunshine, looking at this overgrown frat boy who thought he'd won some kind of prize, I felt only amusement. Joel, can I ask you something? Sure. Do you know why Liora married me instead of you? His confident expression flickered slightly. Because she was young and confused and made a mistake. Because you were broke, I said calmly. Your real estate business was failing, you were living in a studio apartment, and you couldn't afford to take her to McDonald's, let alone Italy. Joel's face flushed red. That was temporary. I was building something. And now you've built it. Congratulations. You can afford her now. I smiled. But here's the thing, Joel. I could always afford her. I chose not to buy her. There's a difference. What's that supposed to mean? It means good luck. You're going to need it. I started to walk away, but Joel grabbed my arm. We're not done talking. I looked down at his hand on my sleeve, then back up at his face. Yes, we are. You think you're better than me? You think your little insurance job makes you special? I think I'm smart enough not to take back a woman who left me for someone else, I said, pulling my arm free. But you do you, Joel. This time when I walked away, he didn't follow. But I could feel his eyes on my back, and I knew this wasn't over. That afternoon, I was at my office reviewing a commercial liability policy when my assistant knocked on my door. Mr. Renwick? There's a woman here to see you. Says she's your wife. I looked up to see Liora standing in my doorway, dressed in the kind of outfit that cost more than most people's monthly rent. She looked beautiful and desperate and furious all at once. Ex-wife, I corrected my assistant. Or soon-to-be. Come in, Liora. Close the door. She entered my office like she owned it, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. Nice place, she said, looking around at the modest space with obvious disdain. Very practical. What do you want, Liora? She sat down across from my desk, crossing her legs in a way that was clearly meant to be distracting. I want to talk about this ridiculous divorce. What about it? You're being childish, Troy. One fight, one moment of honesty, and you're ready to throw away everything we built together? Everything we built? I leaned back in my chair. You mean the house I paid for, furnished with your designs, maintained with my income, while you played at having a career? Her eyes flashed with anger. I have a career. I'm a successful interior designer. You're a successful interior designer because I referred every client who needed your services. You're successful because I networked at industry events and passed along leads. You're successful because I provided the financial stability that allowed you to be selective about your projects. That's not true. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a folder. This is a list of every client you've had in the past 5 years. Guess how many came from sources that had nothing to do with me or my professional network. I slid the paper across the desk. Liora glanced at it, and I watched the color drain from her face. 3, I continued. 3 clients in 5 years who found you independently. The other 47 all came through my connections. You're trying to punish me. I'm trying to divorce you. There's a difference. Liora leaned forward, her voice taking on the pleading tone she used when she wanted something expensive. Troy, please. I made a mistake. I was confused, emotional. Joel means nothing to me. Then why are you going to Italy with him? I'm not. I never said I was definitely going. You said if he called, you were going back to him. I was angry. I felt trapped, unappreciated. You never take me anywhere, never surprise me, never make me feel special. I studied her face, this woman I'd loved for 8 years, and felt nothing but a mild sadness for time wasted. Liora, do you remember our last anniversary? Of course. What did we do? She hesitated. We went to dinner. Where? Another pause. That place you like. I planned a weekend in Napa, booked us a suite at that resort you'd been talking about for months, made reservations at 3 different restaurants you'd mentioned wanting to try, arranged for a private wine tasting. Do you remember what happened? Liora's silence was answer enough. You canceled the morning we were supposed to leave because Joel had texted you about some gallery opening downtown. You said it was important for your career, that you'd make it up to me later. I forgot, she said quietly. You forgot a lot of things, Liora. But I remember all of them. She stood up abruptly, her composure cracking. Fine. You want to be petty and vindictive? Go ahead. But don't expect me to make this easy for you. I wouldn't dream of it. She stormed toward the door, then turned back. You'll regret this, Troy. When you're sitting alone in your sad little apartment, eating takeout and watching TV by yourself, you'll remember what you gave up. Maybe, I said, but I'll also remember what I gained. After she left, I sat in my office for a long time, thinking about the conversation. Then I picked up my phone and called Kiera. How did it go? She asked. About as well as expected. She tried tears, anger, and guilt, the full repertoire. And how do you feel? I looked out my office window at the busy street below, at all the people hurrying to their own complicated lives. Free, I said. For the first time in years, I feel completely free. The confrontation I'd been dreading came the following Saturday. I was at Kiera's apartment, helping her rearrange furniture for a client presentation when Liora showed up unannounced. I should have known I'd find you here, she said, standing in the doorway like an avenging angel in designer jeans. Kiera straightened up from the fabric samples we'd been reviewing. Liora, what are you doing here? I came to talk to my sister about loyalty and family. Leora's eyes moved between us, taking in the domestic scene. But I can see I'm too late for that conversation. Nothing's happened, Kiera said quickly. Troy and I are just friends. Friends? Liora laughed bitterly. Friends don't look at each other the way you two are looking at each other. Friends don't spend every day together while one of them is going through a divorce. I stood up, wiping my hands on a towel. Liora, you don't get to be angry about this. You're the one who chose Joel. I didn't choose anyone. I made a stupid comment when I was feeling neglected and unappreciated. You told your entire family that you were leaving me for your ex-boyfriend. How is that not choosing? Because I didn't mean it. Her voice rose, and I could see tears starting to form. I was trying to get your attention, trying to make you fight for me, trying to make you show that you actually cared whether I stayed or left. The admission hung in the air between us, raw and desperate. So you decided to humiliate me in front of your family as a test? I asked. I decided to be honest about how I was feeling, and instead of fighting for your marriage, you just walked away. Because there was nothing left to fight for, I said quietly. Liora, we've been strangers living in the same house for 2 years. You know it, I know it, and everyone around us knows it. That's not true. When's the last time we had a real conversation? Not about bills or schedules or whose turn it is to do laundry, but an actual conversation about something that mattered? Liora opened her mouth to respond, then closed it again. When's the last time you asked me about my work, beyond whether the commission check had cleared? When's the last time you showed interest in anything I cared about? You never cared about anything interesting, she shot back, then immediately looked like she regretted the words. There it is, I said. The truth. You think I'm boring, Liora. You always have. You married me because I was safe and stable and could provide the lifestyle you wanted, but you never actually liked me. That's not... It is true. And you know what? That's okay. We made a mistake. We're both young enough to start over with people who actually appreciate us. Liora turned to her sister, her expression desperate. Kiera, you can't do this. He's my husband. Soon-to-be ex-husband, Kiera said quietly. And you're the one who ended it, Liora. You can't throw something away and then get angry when someone else picks it up. He's using you to get back at me. No, I said. I'm not. Kiera, can I have a minute alone with your sister? Kiera looked uncertain, but nodded. I'll be in the kitchen. After she left, I sat down on the couch and gestured for Liora to do the same. She remained standing, arms crossed defensively. Liora, I need you to understand something. This isn't about revenge or getting back at you. This is about the fact that I've been in love with the wrong sister for 8 years. You don't love her. You barely know her. I know she remembers my birthday without having to check her phone. I know she asks follow-up questions when I tell her about my day. I know she laughs at my jokes because she actually thinks they're funny, not because she feels obligated to. Those are small things. Those are everything, I said. Those small things are what love actually looks like, Liora. Not grand gestures or expensive trips or dramatic declarations, just paying attention to each other, caring about each other's thoughts and feelings, wanting to make each other happy. Liora sat down heavily, her anger deflating into something that looked like genuine sadness. I did love you, Troy. I do love you. I know you do, in your way, but not enough. Not the way you should love someone you're married to. And you think Kiera does? I thought about the question seriously. I think Kiera sees me, the real me, not the version she wishes I was, or the version she's trying to change me into. I think she likes the person I actually am. And Joel? What about him? Do you think he sees the real me? I looked at my soon-to-be ex-wife, this beautiful, complicated woman who had shared my bed and my life for 8 years, and felt a wave of genuine compassion for her. I think Joel sees the version of you that you are with him. Whether that's the real you or not, I don't know. But it's the version you want to be, and maybe that's enough. Liora wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, smearing her mascara slightly. I don't know how to do this, how to be divorced, how to start over. The same way I'm doing it, one day at a time. She stood up, smoothing down her clothes. I should go. Liora? Yeah? For what it's worth, I hope you're happy. I really do. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak, and walked toward the kitchen to say goodbye to her sister. I heard them talking in low voices, then the sound of the front door closing. A moment later, Kiera came back into the living room. How did she take it? I asked. Better than I expected. Worse than I hoped. Kiera sat down beside me, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her body. She's going to Italy with Joel next week. Good. Maybe some distance will help all of us figure out what comes next. Kiera turned to face me, her expression serious. Troy, I need you to be sure about this, about us, because once we cross this line, there's no going back. Liora will never forgive either of us. I reached out and took her hand, marveling at how perfectly it fit in mine. Kiera, I've never been more sure of anything in my life. She smiled then, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in weeks. In that case, I think we have some lost time to make up for. As she leaned in to kiss me, I thought about the strange turns life could take. 3 months ago, I'd been trapped in a loveless marriage, going through the motions of a life that felt increasingly hollow. Now I was free, sitting with a woman who made me laugh, who challenged me, who saw the best in me even when I couldn't see it myself. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to you is having someone you thought you loved tell you they're leaving. Sometimes the person you're meant to be with has been right there all along, waiting for you to notice. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, they're willing to wait until you're ready to love them the way they deserve to be loved. 6 months later, the divorce was final, and I was a free man. Liora had indeed gone to Italy with Joel, and according to Kiera, they'd had a passionate, dramatic, ultimately disastrous trip that ended with them breaking up in Rome and Liora flying home alone. She'd been back for 2 weeks, and I hadn't heard from her directly, though Kiera mentioned she was staying with friends and trying to rebuild her interior design business. Apparently, losing my client referrals had hit her harder than she'd expected. I was at my office, finishing up some paperwork before the weekend, when my assistant buzzed me. Mr. Renwick, there are some people here to see you. They say they're friends of yours. I looked up to see Mike Patterson and Dave Chen walking into my office. Mike and Dave had been my closest friends for over a decade, guys I'd met in college who'd been groomsmen in my wedding. I hadn't spoken to either of them in months. Troy, Mike said, his expression serious. We need to talk. I gestured to the chairs across from my desk. About what? About what you did to Liora, Dave said, settling into his seat with obvious discomfort. About how you've been treating her. I leaned back in my chair, studying their faces. And what exactly do you think I did to Liora? You abandoned her, Mike said. You threw away 8 years of marriage because of one fight, one moment of weakness, and then you immediately started sleeping with her sister. Is that what she told you? She told us the truth, Dave said. That she made one stupid comment when she was feeling neglected, and instead of working through your problems like adults, you filed for divorce and moved on with Kiera. I was quiet for a moment, processing this version of events. Did she tell you what that one stupid comment was? She said she mentioned an ex-boyfriend and you overreacted. She told her entire family that if her ex-boyfriend called, she was leaving me for him, at a family dinner, while I was sitting right there. Mike and Dave exchanged glances. Clearly, this detail had been omitted from Leora's version of the story. "Okay," Mike said. "So she said something hurtful. Marriage is work, Troy. You don't just give up the first time things get difficult." "The first time?" I laughed bitterly. "Mike, when's the last time you and I hung out? Really hung out? Not just texted or liked each other's social media posts?" "I don't know. A while." 2 years. It's been 2 years since I've had a real conversation with either of you. Do you know why?" They looked uncomfortable but didn't answer. "Because Liora didn't like my friends. She thought you were immature, said you were bad influences, complained every time I made plans with you until I eventually stopped making plans." "That's not—" Dave started. "When's the last time you were at my house? Either of you?" Silence. 3 years. Because Liora said she didn't want loud, messy people in her carefully designed space. So I started meeting you at bars, then coffee shops, then just stopped altogether because it was easier than dealing with the guilt trips and arguments. I stood up and walked to my window, looking out at the city below. "You want to know what my marriage was really like? I'll tell you. I haven't watched a football game in my own living room in 5 years because Liora said sports were mindless and boring. I haven't had a beer in my own house in 3 years because she said it made the place smell like a fraternity. I haven't invited friends over, chosen a restaurant for dinner, or picked a movie to watch without first considering whether it would meet with Leora's approval. I turned back to face them. So when she announced that she was leaving me for her ex-boyfriend, my first thought wasn't anger or heartbreak. It was relief." Mike and Dave looked stunned. "But Liora said," Dave began. "Liora said what she needed to say to make herself look like the victim. Because taking responsibility for her actions has never been her strong suit." "What about Kiera?" Mike asked. "You can't tell me that's not about revenge." "You're right. It's not about revenge. It's about finally being with someone who actually likes me." I sat back down, my anger giving way to something calmer. "Mike, Dave, I appreciate you coming here. I know you think you're being good friends, standing up for someone you think was wronged, but you don't have all the facts. So give us the facts," Dave said. I spent the next 20 minutes telling them everything. The gradual isolation from friends and activities I enjoyed. The constant criticism disguised as helpful suggestions. The way Liora had slowly, systematically made me feel like I needed to apologize for being myself. When I finished, the room was quiet. "Jesus, Troy," Mike said finally. "Why didn't you tell us this was happening?" "Because I didn't realize it was happening. It was gradual, subtle. And because I loved her, I thought if I just tried harder, became the person she wanted me to be, things would get better." "And Kiera?" "Kiera likes football. She thinks my job is interesting. She laughs at my jokes and doesn't try to change my friends or my hobbies or my personality. She makes me feel like I'm enough, exactly as I am." Dave shook his head. "Man, I'm sorry. We had no idea." "I know you didn't, and I don't blame you for believing Leora's version. She's very convincing when she wants to be." "What happens now?" Mike asked. "Now you decide whether you want to be friends again. Real friends, not just social media connections. And if you do, you'll have to accept that Kiera is part of my life now." "And if Liora doesn't like that?" I smiled. "Then that's Leora's problem to solve." Mike and Dave left an hour later, after we'd made plans to watch the game at my apartment the following weekend. As I packed up my office, I reflected on how different my life had become. For the first time in years, I was looking forward to the weekend. I was going to watch football with my friends, take Kiera to dinner at a restaurant I actually wanted to try, and sleep in on Sunday morning without worrying about anyone's approval but my own. It had taken a failed marriage to teach me the difference between love and accommodation, between partnership and subjugation, between compromise and surrender. But I'd learned the lesson well, and I wasn't going to forget it. As I locked my office and headed home to my new life, I thought about Liora and hoped she was learning some lessons of her own. We'd both made mistakes in our marriage, but we'd also both been given a second chance to find something better. I'd found mine. Now it was her turn.